Welcome everyone to our Encircle workshop, the fast track to accurate estimates. Okay, we've got a lot of people piling in. We had a great response to this webinar. We had over 500 people registering for this. So super excited for the information that Karena is going to share with us today. And then JF is going to walk through some how to implement some of these tips and tricks with Encircle. So let's get started. My name's Leah. I'm the Director of Product and Content Marketing here at Encircle. I'm going to be moderating the session today, monitoring the chat, monitoring the Q&A throughout the session. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. This is a workshop broken into two sections. So the first part is with Karena, who I will introduce shortly. And she is going to share her experience and knowledge of over 30 plus years as an estimator in restoration. And then the second part will be with JF, who's one of our customer success managers here at Encircle. And he's going to walk through an Encircle demo and how to implement, like I said, implement some of the things that Karena has talked about using the Encircle platform. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our the first part of our webinar. It's Karena George. Karena is the owner of Exact Mitigation Consultants, a third-party estimating service based out of Colorado. She brings with her, like I said, 34 years of experience in mitigation and estimating. So I know that we're all eager to jump right into this Q&A with her. And like I mentioned, JF, Customer Success Manager from Encircle. JF, show on your hands, show me how long you've been with Encircle. 6 years, 6-ish, 7 years. So super knowledgeable. He's going to dive in and give you a demo of the Encircle platform, show you how to implement some of these things. So Jeff, we will say goodbye for now, and we'll see you in about an hour. Karena, is there anything else you would like to share about your experience as an estimator? Introduce yourself.
I think you covered it.
All right, perfect. Let's dive right in.
Dive in.
Okay. So like I said, we had over 500 people register for our webinar today, and we had the opportunity for people to submit questions in advance. So we're gonna try to get as many questions as possible, and in the time that we have today. And anything that we don't cover, we will follow up with you to get you those answers afterwards. So Karena, first question, can you go over the most important steps that a restorer should take to write a good, accurate scope?
Well, you're going to want to start from the beginning of the job. And I think that's where you have a lot of restorers that get in and they get so excited about the job itself. They don't start the documentation from the get-go. So your work auth, super important. Make sure you get that first thing. And that's how we even have some people that don't even understand that Encircle will digitize their work authorizations for them. So they're not using the program to the full ability of everything that it can do for you. So as you're walking up to the house, you're going to, obviously talk to your customer, get your work authorization signed, and then go scope your job. As soon as you've got that landed, that should be the moment that you start your documentation. You open up your rooms and for your photos and get start taking your photos, start taking your reading photos. We have a lot of people that do not get those reading photos because they're so just kind of into the job itself that they don't get those. So your exterior picture and walk through it and use Encircle as if like you're trying to tell a story, because that's what you're doing. You got to understand that the adjusters, and I know we'll probably get into this a little bit later on, but the adjusters that we're seeing right now they were probably cooking your steak at Outback last week. I mean, that's just the truth of it. We're not getting experienced adjusters out there. And so you need to tell them the story of what's going on. Take your photos for your meters, take with your readings on each building material in each room. Make sure you're documenting your PPE that you're wearing, a photo of somebody in PPE, any all of your equipment in place. That's another one where we see people aren't getting it. Have just like a little checklist somewhere. You can even do specialized checklists. Get with your customer success manager with Encircle. There's really cool checklists that you can make yourself in Encircle, of the things. If your technicians aren't getting them, make them go through that checklist, and that can be done on the Encircle platform of specialized checklists that you can make. So it's on the scoping. And then the other thing with that is document daily. Make sure your equipment in place. We get a lot of people don't get equipment in place. And so now then you've got your adjusters are asking, hey, I'm not seeing equipment here. I'm not seeing equipment there. I mean, it's obviously didn't drive by itself, but they're not all that bright. So they're just wanting documentation of everything on writing this scope.
Okay. So takeaway from that, when it comes to writing a good scope is making sure that you have sort of captured and documented the details when you arrive, exactly what the state of the property is in,
Yep.
using sort of all means necessary, photos, videos, forms, notes.
Daily. Well, here's another one we run into constantly is you'll get through the entire job and then they're trying to back document the demo daily. We beat it daily. If the technician will get into the scoping and daily go, okay, in the bedroom today, we did 2-foot flood cuts here and we did 12 linear feet. We took out the insulation here. We did this. Number one, you're not losing line items. And we see that if you're not, you're a week down the road into a demo, or you're 2 weeks down into a demo, and you get to the end of it and they're trying to remember what they did 2 weeks ago when they had 5 jobs going, you're losing part of that. So if the daily, take 5 minutes at the end of the day, it's super easy. Open up the scope, put in what you did. It's a done deal.
Great.
So that way, when you walk off the job, it's ready to write. You're not waiting for that documentation to come in. It's, hey, they can send it to whomever, or if they do it in-house, they can go, okay, we're done. We pulled equipment today. We took our last photos. We did the last little bit of documentation that we needed to do, and off it goes, and it's able to be estimated quickly and get a turnaround quickly.
Awesome. Next question that came in is around speed of estimates. We know that insurance companies, third-party TPAs want things quickly, want estimates in quickly. So do you have any tips for completing accurate estimates in a timely manner, getting them on the desks of those adjusters quickly?
That's really going to fall back on the training of your technicians. It goes back to the technicians using their time. And like I said, the daily, that's where your speed comes from, because the estimating is not super hard if you've got all the documentation, but where the backup always seems to be is the documentation doesn't happen, or they're not using Encircle to its full. We teach a lot of, they go, well, my technicians just don't get it, or they don't have time to do the training. They all drive. And most of y'all are using 2-man crews. So you got somebody driving, that's their job. That's what they're getting paid for. You got somebody sitting, looking out the windshield or scrolling on their phone, doom scrolling. Guess what? There's Encircle U, and we tell everybody, get on Encircle U. Each person can get their own login and they can do training. And you can actually track what each one of those technicians is doing and where they're at in that Encircle U. And so you go, okay, I'm not paying you to look at your phone or text your girlfriend. When I'm paying you, you're in the truck, we're driving to or from. I want you to be on Encircle U. The more that they can get that training and go through it, then they're going to be able to understand the program and then just have a system for them so that when you're walking off of the job, it's done and it can be sent. Like all of our clients, we get on with their technicians if we need to and go, hey, you're constantly missing getting your dry readings in, or you're missing photos, or you're missing whatever. And it's kind of just that forcing them to use the time that you're already paying them for to get that documentation in on a daily basis. So the moment you walk off the job, you've got everything that you need to build the job. Ideally, that job could be starting to be written as they're driving back to the office.
That's right. So putting in the time up front to make sure that everybody's on the same page with what needs to be done. They're trained, they understand exactly what information needs to be collected. So spending that upfront time is going to get all of your estimates written faster in the end because you have access to the things that you need.
That is correct. And the daily and utilizing Encircle. I had a client that came on yesterday that told me Encircle does more than contents. Okay, you need to get in Encircle U because yes, it does everything that you need in there for the documentation that you're going to need. It's just doing that on a consistent and getting your technicians where they're using your time to do work for you, not something else. And I think a lot of it is that the technicians just don't understand it because they don't take the time to learn it. And once they learn it, then it's easy. Go through, do it on a daily basis, make sure it's getting done daily. And you can write super fast if you're getting it in same day. And then it turns right into the adjusters and they're happy. Yep. You get a lot faster turnaround on your adjusters getting back with you if it's not a job that's a month old. Yep. Because that helps their times. They get graded on times. They get bonuses on the time they can turn an estimate or turn a claim around. So if you're the holdup, you're holding up their money, they're going to go to the person that got their claim in quicker than, their claim in the day after or the day after. They're going to want to close that one out because it's going to help their time and their money that they're going to make.
Yeah. We just had a question come in from Jason. He has some, I'm going to apologize if I stutter. I'm just going to read it as I see it. He has some commercial clients that want an estimate done before any work is started. What would you do with that? So essentially needs an estimate done within 30 minutes.
I wouldn't use Exactament. You come up with a list of your main items that you use, a tick list. What are you going to do in this job? What do you think it's going to take? And just, this is what we charge. That's, I know we owned a restoration company at one point, and we just had a one-sheeter of, we charge this much a day for dehues. We charge this much a day. So our technicians would be able to go in and go, well, okay, we're going to need 3 dehues, and they'd be able to tick it on there and go, okay, well, we charge this a day and be able to do the math on it. You're not, like I said, if they're wanting something in 30 minutes, that can at least give them a roundabout idea of where you're going to be.
Okay, thanks. The next question that came in was submitted in advance. And it's back to what you were saying earlier, Karena. Many restorers feel like adjusters have changed in the last 3 to 5 years from those that at one point had field experience and knowledge to those who are more seemingly unfamiliar with restoration work. I know that you have an opinion on this topic, but what is your advice for navigating this landscape?
Document. You're telling a story, but you're telling a story to a toddler. Yeah, I know it's a harsh reality, but it really is the landscape that we are all living in right now. We deal with it daily with hundreds of claims. That is, you're dealing with a toddler. So the better you can get your documentation, take the correct pictures, but also adjusters have right now, the ones we're talking to between 150 to 200 claims on their plate every single day. So don't, yes, you want speed in sending it to them, but don't speed it so fast that you go, oh, well, I don't have the dry logs. I'll send that in later, because they're going down through their list, right? I can close this one out quick. They open it up and you don't have everything in there. Don't send out something that's not a complete package. No, you've got your work auth, you've got your dry logs, you've got your photos, you've got good photos that tell a story. Make sure that you have everything, you know, your 360s are awesome. I'm so excited about the 360s coming in with you guys. Yeah, don't make the assumption that they know what you know. That was from my estimating pillar. She deals with the adjusters every single day. As a matter of fact, you know what? Come talk on this one. We're gonna. This is Alyssa. She's my billing manager, and she runs tons of claims. So go ahead and.
So the big thing with adjusters nowadays is that, yes, like Karena said, we almost do have to treat them like toddlers. You have to treat them like they don't know anything about the S500, that you need to give them every single piece of information like you are training a new technician. Because realistically, 99% of these adjusters are never stepping foot on the job. And if they are, they're getting it from, well, I kind of know what I'm talking about, but then I need to follow my company guidelines and not what the IICRC guidelines are. So you have to have every single action you do has to have some type of support to it from the IICRC or some type of other source that is accredited towards what you are doing. If you don't have that, you are not going to get your line items. It's just going to be a reality of, I'm sorry, I can't cover this. I can't do this or that because of X, Y, and Z. And even then, sometimes I've had experiences where it is 100% supported by IICRC and all that. And I'll be told by the adjuster that simply because of company policy, they will not cover it. So then that's when you need to utilize other sources like your homeowners or other things that you have in your pocket to try and get things covered.
On that, homeowners are fantastic.
Yes.
So if you are onboarding your homeowners correctly, you're going to let them know, hey, I may need you. I may ask you to reach out to your adjuster at some point to get them moving. We may get a great adjuster. I love to do it. We may get a great adjuster, you know, and we're just going to go with that. But in the off chance, which we know it's probably going to be more than an off chance, but in the off chance that we get a bad adjuster that really doesn't have the knowledge, I may need to reach out to you to have you reach out to them, because homeowners pull a lot of weight. If you let them know that you're going on the front side, that you're going to allow that you're may need them to make a phone call for you, then you go, hey, you know what? We had this conversation on the front side. Could you please reach out? Your adjuster's not answering. I can't get a phone call back from them. It changes that. Now, second part of that I was thinking about when she was talking IICRC, and this goes back to kind of the scoping question. If you do not have an IICRC S500 in every truck, get one, please. And make sure when you're doing that job, Appendix A should be your best friend. It's in the very back of the book. It will tell you if you've got on category 1 and you've got drywall, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to clean it? How are you supposed to dry it? That's like your roadmap to doing a proper mitigation. And a lot of people don't understand, hey, you know, you should be HEPA vacuuming prior to placing air movers. They will learn a whole lot. You will actually increase the scope of what you can write for and get paid for. But by doing the job properly, if you get that Appendix A, I'm missing the beginning. Appendix A of the IICRC S500, whoever just sent that through. The S500, I say have it in the back of the book, so that each one of your technicians, they may go into your S5, they may go into a job and go, you know what, I'm not quite sure on this. Should I cut this out? We get a lot of that question. Should I cut this out? Should I do this? Well, what does the Appendix A say? Go to drywall, go to your category. It's going to tell you everything that you need to do pretty much step by step for every part of that specific. And it has it for flooring and for tile and for X, Y, Z. So there's so much information in that will help your technicians to do the job right. Then when it gets to billing, because they've used that Appendix A, then you can have an adjuster that doesn't know what they're talking about or what they're doing, like our green adjusters, that instead of us saying, well, he thinks this and you think this, we just go to the Appendix A and say, well, Appendix A says this is the way it's supposed to be done. We did it exactly the way it was supposed to be done. Then we documented it the way it was supposed to be done. And here's all your information. Take the emotion out of it. Here's the information. Here's the hard data. We did the job properly, period. There you go.
I hear that a lot in our webinars is in navigating these relationships is a lot of taking the emotion out of it. I think there's an expression, facts don't care about feelings. So stick to the facts and present that story. I know the CEO of Encircle, he talks about the way that our the reports were built at Encircle is to, they're written like a storybook. They have the cover page of the exterior. There's the index. It's a picture book. So it is that ability to tell that story, not through a PhD dissertation, but through a picture book and supplemented by notes and things like that. So
correct.
A
and
couple
it's
of
all
questions.
in one spot. That was one thing that I know I love about Encircle is that it's all in one space. So prior to using Encircle, we would always have, well, we don't have your dry logs, but we had sent them the dry logs. But it's, man, I tell you what, you get them too many attachments. It's like they just don't have time to open them, or they don't open them, or they lose them. But the fact that you can do everything in that one report and send them one report seems to smooth that transition where they're not losing stuff. Now, sometimes we'll still have them say, I don't have your dry log. Well, you know what? There's one place you need to go and it's going to be in there instead of trying to explain to them where it's at.
Yeah. The questions are flying in now, Karena. So I'm going to go to the Q&A box. Ivy asked, what about when adjusters use third parties to audit? So that was back to a question that was that I asked you about 5 minutes ago, which was, I think it was while Alyssa was speaking, is navigating that new landscape of inexperienced adjusters.
Okay, so what we do is we will work with that third party in an effort to try to come to an agreement, but we're not going to argue back and forth with them. So let them go to the third party because they're going to use them anyways, right? So give your justifications, take the emotion out of it, use your justifications as to this is why we did what we did based on what the standard is. Send it back to them. Generally, they're going to come back with a counter of X, Y, or Z. Then what we do is say, hey, fantastic. Can you please send that to the carrier? I mean, you may end up being in agreement with them. If you're in agreement with them, go ahead with the carrier. Most of the time, you're not going to be in agreement with them. You say, hey, we are not in agreement with where you're at or with what you've determined. Please send this back to the carrier so we can work out the balance of what you're not paying with the carrier. And we will go work straight with the carrier instead of working with the third party. You have to at least make the effort though to work with the third party. I know everybody doesn't agree with that, but that's, I think if you make that, because then you get that back and forth. Well, you won't work with my, don't do that. Just send your facts to the third carrier or the third party. If they're, you can't come to an agreement, just say, hey, please send your report so that we can now start the process with the carrier to, with the carrier to close out the claim. My computer is dying. Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to grab another question. Do you send the final invoice to the adjuster or the homeowner, or do you send the invoice to both parties?
Oh, love it. Both, always. always, 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 because you're going to get back, and we have at the very bottom of our, of what we send out with every email, we let them know that we let the adjusters know that the homeowners are included on this, please note, homeowners are included on this email, and please reply all when responding. Oh man, we've had adjusters reply just to us and tell us that's not fair. It is fair. Right? Because your adjusters, if you've onboarded them saying we're just going to say we're going to get a good one because that's what we want, but it's very possible we could get a bad one. But if you're putting that homeowner on there, and then when you're onboarding them as well, you want to let them know, because homeowners get so confused and they'll get, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with this? You let them know, hey, listen, this is your claim. It is your home. Okay. So we want to keep you informed. Know that you'll be getting emails that's with the adjuster. That's just so you know where the process is. When you see those emails come through, you don't have to do anything, but we want to keep you completely informed throughout the entire process as to how your claim is going. And so you're not in the dark about it. It will stop some of the real stupidity that you get and then make sure that that at the bottom of somewhere of your email, hey, homeowner is included on this. Please reply all to any responses so we can keep them informed.
Great. Adrian asked a question. What should you do when you're confident that a disputed line item is justified, but the adjuster and mentioned a specific carrier in their question refuses to approve it?
Wouldn't be an S and an F. Oh, I didn't say that. You can start with a supervisor. Okay. Start with a supervisor, see where you can get there. And the reality of the landscape that we are in, there are times that you may have to go back to the homeowner and say, listen, this is, and sit down with them and go, okay, here's the standard. And I'm showing you, I wanted to do to the standard. This is where it is. And that's why I like the book form. A lot of people like the S500. I like the book form because you can take it into a homeowner and you can open it up and go, this is why I did what I did, because I care about your family. I wanted to keep your family safe. Your adjuster is not wanting to pay for this. Would you please reach out to them? Use your homeowner, but do it in a way where you've now made them understand this should have been done. You did it exactly the way you were supposed to do it. Why are they not paying for it?
That's great. Bree asked a very specific question. If you don't know the answer, that's fine, but I'm gonna read it to you anyways, Karena. If a water main blows in the back alley and runs through the backyard through dog feces,
Category 3. That's what she's asking.
It breaks the glass in the French doors and loads the basement with silty water. What category would this be?
3. We
have an insurance company arguing that it is Cat 2, not 3.
No, that's Cat 3. As a matter of fact, that's not only that, it's groundwater, which is Cat 3. So go back to your S500, because you're going on the that's going to be considered flood water, right? So anytime you go into a hurricane, it's always category 3. You're using the dog feces. It's not because of the dog feces. It's because of all of the environmental toxins. That's why anytime you have flooding, it is a category 3. Even FEMA says, hey, yeah, it's a category 3, because you don't know what fuels, what toxins, so change your justification from it being the dog feces to the fact that it's water that ran over the ground, just like if you had a flood.
Okay. Christopher is asking, are these questions and answers that you're giving us, Karena, just for mitigation estimates, or are you speaking to repair estimate tips and advice today?
On repair estimates, I always say, mitigation is a little bit different, because I believe in do it correctly, document it correctly, get it in. I don't believe in pre-estimates for mitigation. You don't know what you're going to run into. There's too many variables in that. On reconstruction, that should be something that the estimate is done prior to the project ever being started. It is agreed upon prior to ever being started, and the homeowner has the money in hand, other than clearly your depreciation, and there is a significant deposit paid. If you start a reconstruction estimate, I've had so many clients that do this. I preach, there's another one of these things I preach, but people don't do it. And then they do their first few, and then they come back to me and go, okay, let's do it your way. Is if you do not get that deposit, and I say 65% up front. 30, and obviously on a really large job, you're looking, a $200,000 job, that's going to end up being more incremental, in stages. But on your typical ones, you get that 65% up front. But what happens is, yes, your homeowners are going to be anxious to get their home back in. So now your homeowner is going to become your biggest advocate, because they don't want to live with everything. And then when they're calling you, you can go, hey, I'm still working with your adjuster. We want to get started as soon as we can, make sure that it makes sense, that I'm not going to end up out of pocket for your job. But then your homeowner's calling daily because they're walking around their house with no flooring, with stuff cut open, or they're in a hotel. And so use that to your advantage. Don't ever start a reconstruction until you've got a agreed upon price. The check has been sent and the homeowner has the money.
That makes sense. So it's really, there's really a language difference here, right? In a mitigation, in the emergency sort of mitigation drying, your suggestion is you never, you're not sending an estimate, you're sending an invoice for
an invoice.
Always an invoice when the drying is complete, versus rebuild, you're never starting until the estimate is approved and checks in the mail.
That is correct. The other thing that I'm going to say, and this is big, is there are so many homeowners that will have you do the estimate. They will have you go through the process of dealing with their insurance company. You've put all of this time, all of this effort in. The job closes, they get the money, then they go hire a bunch of people off of Craigslist. So I would say, have a cancellation fee, have a contract, and you let them know, hey, we're gonna get the most amount that we can, not the most amount, the correct amount for your job, to do it correctly and to not cut any corners. That being said, that takes time. It takes time with the insurance companies. We've got estimating that needs to happen. And I recommend that they have a cancellation contract. So before it's even written or even sent to the insurance company, that homeowner has signed I'm going to pay you 20% of whatever you get from the insurance company if I choose to go somewhere else. Since we started that policy and people start using that, we have a form that we send out for our clients, that our clients use. We've only had one person that actually did not go with them, and we were having it consistently. Homeowners do that. But when they realize, well, that 20% that they think that they can save, they're now going to have to pay to the person that actually did the work to get them the money. It has completely stopped that. But that one time they got 20%. So they actually got paid for their time.
Yep. All right, next question, Gabriel. When demolishing drywall in a home built before 1978, is it necessary to test for lead? If lead is detected in the drywall, how can you justify the need for proper remediation and safety protocols?
Okay, so this is a great question. Let's go lead. Somebody says lead and asbestos. So everybody gets that one confused. Lead does have your date, and lead is going to be something that is regulated. So unless you are RRP certified or certified to remove lead, you can't touch that. But you You still have to test for it. Asbestos. Everybody thinks there's a date on asbestos. We banned asbestos. Guys, we did not ban asbestos. Asbestos still gets imported. Something can be put in today that contains asbestos, your vinyls, your drywall, your mastics, all of that kind of stuff can be put in today. And tomorrow you got to take it out and it's regulated to take out. It's silly. There's a whole story behind that, but we don't have time on this webinar. Maybe I'll write something up so that we can tell somebody how that all worked. It had to do with economies of different countries when we tried to ban the asbestos. So we do not mine asbestos here. Anyways, long story short, because I'd love to go into that story, but I'm not going to, not today at least. Every state has its own law on asbestos. So it's no matter what, you have to test for asbestos. Every state has a regulation on where that threshold is, as far as if it's over 30, like Colorado's over 32 square feet. But if you remember that your OSHA standards, which is federal, so it's going to be every single state, anything over 10 square feet of anything that's suspect ACM must be tested every single time. So your glues, if you've got a question, well, we'll talk about that later. Your glues, your drywalls, your mastics, all of that kind of stuff has to be tested. And it doesn't matter what state you're in. That's pretty much going to trump the laws in every state because it's federal, but for California, because California has a 0. Their threshold is you can cut into 0 square feet without testing for it. Did that answer your question?
We're going to assume it did.
Okay.
All right. Danielle has asked, we've noticed that many adjusters have not been attempting to reach an agreement with us and just instead sending a check to the homeowner for a lesser amount than our bill, despite the reports we are sending to substantiate the charges. Do you have any recommendations for this
Absolutely.
situation?
So then you just pretend that that's undisputed funds. And you're going to write the adjuster back and you're going to do, thank you so much for the undisputed funds that you sent. We still need to address the rest of the bill that is due. So we use that undisputed funds on a consistent, please send. And back to the question we were talking about third party, once you send it back to the carrier and you've done that, ask for the undisputed funds. How do I put this? Say you've got a $20,000 bill, right? They're offering 15. You guys are fighting back and forth over the other 5. Okay. After that first response, then it comes back, request undisputed funds. That's fine. Please send the undisputed funds, which is the 15. I don't know why it seems to be a psychological thing with them, because then now they're not fighting over $20,000. They're fighting over 5 because the 15's already been sent. So undisputed funds. And not only that, it helps your cash flow for the money to be coming in, at least a portion of the money. And then you're only arguing over that 5,000. And then it's not such a big number. And it seems to loosen that up once you get that undisputed funds in.
Okay, we have another question, similar and related to the last one. Why do insurance companies send the checks to the homeowner? We're finding that we are chasing the homeowners to get the money.
Okay, and that's would be something where I kind of need to be in your work authorization. You should have a direction of pay, and then in your email communications, point it out. Not saying that it's always going to be sent, but you are going to have a much better chance. So when you communicate with the insurance companies, let them know, please note that there is a direction of pay in our work authorization. We are requesting that the check either be sent to us or our name be added onto the check. If you get a chance to actually speak to an adjuster, reiterate that, hey, we have that. Once you've come to an agreement with them, reiterate that in an email as well. Hey, we have that. And a lot of times they'll say, hey, you know what, we can't do that. And say, hey, you know what, can you please at least put our name on the check? That's going to stop them from being able to cash it and whatnot. It's not going to happen every time. You're still going to have some issues like that, but it definitely brings the amount of that happening down. And if your name's on the check, but your adjuster is automatically, if you're not bringing it up that it's going to be in their work off, remember, they're working 150 to 200 claims. They're looking to see if you have a work off. They're not reading your work authorization. Point it out to them.
Okay. Question from Daniel. If you know Xactimate on a severe fire loss, would you accept a labor rate to pack / content process for I'm gonna butcher this question, but CDC LABC labor clean labor rate? All categories of water losses have the labor rate CLN-R. I'm having trouble time bending over for this.
I'm having trouble what?
I'm having trouble with this. I've raised my concern with the board of directors and he will not budge. I'm at a loss. I don't know if you're following that.
Can you just repeat it one more time? I'm sorry. I didn't quite.
Okay. Would you accept a labor rate for to pack content process for CDC LABC, which I believe is the Xactimate code?
Right. It's your labor.
Yep. All categories of water losses have the labor rate CLN-R.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are estimating, that is a great question. I am always changing that. You'll find like your water category does not have everything that you need in it in a lot of instances. So you may have to go over and use your APP for your appliances, or you may need to use CLN because it just doesn't exist. When you do that, just change it to CLN-R, or for category 3, we actually change it to HMRT for your hazardous materials, because that's really where it's at. There's also in the HMR category, they've now put in quite a few of the water line items for category 3. So no, they have them in the water, they have them in the HMRT, but if you, or HMR category, if you're using those the HMR category, it's the same line item, but it's calculating it for the labor rate of an HMR technician. Now you can do the same thing if you want to stay in water and use that same line item, because they're the exact same line item, just priced differently. You can go over to where you can change the labor trade and just change the trade to that HMRT.
Thank you. So apologies for butchering the question.
No, you're fine. Apologies for my brain not like
there's a question back to your response earlier about cancellation fees. And some, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, given that it's California, but are you able to charge a cancellation fee with TPAs in California?
I don't work with TPAs. I did. I've had several that I've worked with, but the truth of the matter is there was, I don't know how to say it nice. How about there's just not enough margin for, I mean, yes, it's a lot of busy work. I don't know about the TPAs, because really a lot of their guidelines, you can open up an S500 and it's completely contradictory to what the S500 is saying. So I can't really speak to TPA work because we don't do TPA work.
For the questions on TPAs, we did run a webinar about a month and a half ago on TPAs, and it's available on the Encircle website. We had some top performers within with some of the biggest TPAs, some contractors who are top performers. So really great advice on that webinar. It's available on demand. So if you wanted to go back and check that out. Okay, a couple of other questions. This one, I missed it. It came in about 25 minutes ago, but Todd asked, can you speak to custom price lists or factoring? So any success at collecting on using custom price lists, and how it affects your relationship with the adjuster?
We find as much success with factoring as we do with custom price lists. they're going to want to argue it, but we have a pretty good success rate with the custom pricing. If you go to your Exactware white paper, the end user license agreement that they use, it says right in there, Exactament pricing is only a place to start an estimate, and that the user will agrees not to preclude somebody else from changing the pricing. So they are in violation of, because that's the whole price fixing thing, right? So if every mitigation company held a standard to be like the whole Mobile with the FTC, you'd be in violation of the FTC price fixing guidelines.
Michelle asked a question. We had a situation where the insurance sent the check in the homeowner's and the mortgage holder bank's name. Homeowner deposited the check. Bank wouldn't release the funds until they had their own adjuster come and look at the property. By the time their adjuster came out, we were 90% done. The bank continued to hold the check for another 45 days. Homeowner was calling them regularly, but getting nowhere. Any suggestions on how to deal with this?
Start the process early. Ask them, and she's got to be talking about a reconstruction, even though we've seen some recently go to the mortgage company on the water. Start the process early. If you know you're doing the reconstruction, if they've got a mortgage, have them contact their mortgage company. Most mortgage companies will have a some type of a release that they'll need to get, and they'll need to specifically ask for that for the contractor to talk to them. Homeowners have jobs, they do their thing. Get the control of it by getting that release, and it's not something that you're going to be able to have a form for, because every mortgage company does it differently. But you're just going to let them know, hey, right from the get-go, get with your mortgage company. If you want to keep this process going, you need to find out what the process is going to be. They can also ask their adjuster if the adjuster is going to put the mortgage company on it. Start the process super early. That way they've got everything filled out. That way you as the contractor can be the one that is working with with them, so that as you're working through the estimate with the adjuster, your homeowner's working through the paperwork and all of the stuff that they're going to need. So when the check comes, it's a quick turn, it goes there. They've had that conversation. You're already able to be a part of the conversation and keep that flow going.
Okay. We have another question around measurements. Now this one is talking about measurements. I'm assuming they were referring to measurements taken with Encircle's floor plan. But what do you do when the insurance adjuster has different measurements than those provided by the contractor, whether that's with floor plan or hand measuring or whatever through another system?
Go back out and take pictures of a tape measure. I mean, we're not seeing that a lot, but if that's an issue, go into the room, pull out a tape measure or a laser. I mean, we use lasers if, you know, for small measurements or whatnot that you need, but laser your tape measure and just go take a picture of it, send it off to them and go, hey, or ask them to meet you out at the project. Hey, let's remeasure it. I've had people do that where the measurements were the adjuster was so off on their measurements, but was sticking to it. Just make them meet you back out at the project and go, hey, let's meet and remeasure this. That way we're both on the same page.
I will chime in a little. If the question was related specifically to measurements with Encircle floor plan, I can have Kia in the background add in an article on some best practices for using Encircle floor plan, because the way in which you capture the scan and how you're doing that, there's some best practices that will ensure that you get better, more accurate measurements with the output. So I'm just gonna hope that Kia heard me out in the world, and she'll find that article and she'll throw it into the chat. So just wanted to put that out there. Okay. We got about 10 or so minutes left, Karena. And I have a bunch more questions to ask. So
Go for it.
one of them is that more and more insurance companies are preferring to use pricing exactament line items, even for specialty items like flooring, plumbing, electrical, cabinetry, doors, windows, etc. How can a contractor further justify the use of subtrades quotes if the exact line items are insufficient to cover the true costs?
Exact line items are never sufficient, but if you want to make money, are never sufficient. I mean, that's why, I mean, most people are factoring by 30%. That's number one, but he's talking more about subtrades. You take your subtrade bill, put it in, add your 10/10 to it. So you're making your, at least 20% on it and submit it that way. I know some of the adjusters, may say, well, that's still too high. Go get a second bid. It's just part of the game you have to play on that. We don't run into a lot of that, but if you're, and honestly, the truth is every area seems to be a little bit different. We're in 27 states, so I can speak to those states and kind of, but there is different areas that are kind of the mentality is like all the adjusters have gotten together and go, hey, we don't believe in HEPA vacuuming, or we don't believe in X, Y, or Z. It's just kind of a weird thing, but yeah, just put your 10/10 on it.
Okay.
And if they're still having a problem, get a second bid.
Okay. Follow-up question from Christopher. Can you give examples of how you're factoring in your estimates?
So we do the global factoring. So you would take your room, you would go to your rooms, and you're going to click your top room, and then you're going to go Control A, and that's going to highlight all the rooms. And then in your right hand side, it's going to give you all of the line items. You're going to click your top line item, and you're going to go Control A, and that's going to highlight all of those items, and it's going to pull up a box. In the top of the box, there's a drop down, and you can click factoring, and then you can factor by a certain percentage. It gives you, like, for the removal, remove and replace it material, so you can factor each section and factor it as a whole.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is another question that came in before the webinar from one of our attendees. How to effectively or efficiently work with a remote estimator? So Karena, you're I'm sure very familiar with this, given that you do remote estimating. Can you share how you and your clients are working together for effective and efficient sharing of information and communication to get the job done?
So we, when a job is started, actually, you know what? This is a great one for Alyssa, because she works with the clients every day. And
yeah, I'm the day-to-day basically. So a big thing with working with your contractors is that it is essentially almost custom to each contractor. However, we do have a similar process overall. It's a lot of, we have someone we specifically communicate with. We have stuff that they fill out to give us for our estimating side, that then our people write it, and then me and my girls are going through and we are back checking everything. So it is a thing of, you have to have that consistent communication between your team and the people who are actually doing your billing to have an effective flow of work. Because if you are missing stuff and you're not getting back to your people, or they are not getting back to you, it's never going to work, because it's always going to be a thing of, they need some type of information or you're missing information, and now you're trying to bill for something that you can't give the information to the adjuster about.
Constant communication. And we have a whole system kind of where, from, like when you start with us, you get trained by Shannon on how to do your scopes, on how to, we've got a little system that we use where they can go in and see every claim, and the process that it's in, and the emails that have been done and whatnot. So there's really big visibility, but then Shannon does all of the training. And so I don't know really how other remote estimators work. Our process is that we have, Shannon will start out with them, and she's pretty much the trainer. She shows them how to fill out the scope sheets. What are best practices for photos? What photos are we looking for? What documentation are we looking for? We give them a list of that. So it's really, I think, just how effective is your remote estimator in setting the expectation and then having somebody to talk to, you know. And I know there's some great remote estimators that are one-on-one where, you know, we don't flip around from one estimator to another. You've got an estimator that you can talk to if you need to. You've got a billing person that's your billing person, that if you've got a question about a job and it's not answered from our program of everything that we document every time that we touch the file, then you've got their phone number, so you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got a question on X, Y, or Z. So I think it's a lot of that communication, and then doing the training on the front side, and really the system. What is their system? We use Encircle. So we push Encircle. Well, if you don't have Encircle, we're not going to work with you, but just simply because we found it's the best way and the fastest way to get paid, and the fastest way to capture, the best way to capture all of the information. But, speaking to what we do, Shannon will train them. And then as they have new technicians come on, they'll get the technicians to come on and do a brief training with her, so they kind of know what the system is, so that it just kind of continues to flow.
That's great. I don't want to keep you too much longer, Karena, but I know that there's lots
You're
of questions.
good. Keep going. I'm
All
not
right.
in a hurry at the moment.
What role do 360 photos and sketches play in your workflow with your clients? And Karena, you and I have talked about this before, is this sort of sweet spot of documentation, and what's the right amount of photos. And so if you can just talk to sort of how does 360 play into that? What should you still be taking traditional photos of? And how does a floor plan or a sketch fit into that too?
Okay, so your 360, you have to have at bare minimum a before and an after. It's a great.
Is that daily, like you were talking
No.
about before? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, and you can do dailies, but then we get into, and I think you and I had talked about this before, was where people will go, I've got 6,000 photos in there, and I've got 42, 360s. Keep in mind, your adjuster is trying to close this out fast. Give them your sweet spot's going to be where you're giving them the story, you're providing the documentation for the story, but you're not overwhelming them with, close-up photos of tons of different things. Close-up photos should be kept for specialty. I've got drywall bubbling. So get your good overviews. So it's that fine line. I mean, I know we tell our people, go ahead and, we train them on the right photos to take, but if in doubt, take more photos, because then when you're actually building the report, our girls or whomever you have doing your stuff, as long as they know what they're looking for, can go in and pick the appropriate photos and only give them what they need to not overwhelm them. Because if they see 14 or 30 pages of photos, you're just going to frustrate them. We've had adjusters where people will do more documentation, because it kind of was when we first started, oh my gosh, this is great, but then it was too much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's giving them enough where they in each spot can see what they need to see, whereas it relates to what you're charging. If it doesn't relate to what you're billing for, it doesn't need to be in there.
Okay.
And I love the 360s, because then it visually you've got the sketch, but it also visually gives them the walkthrough where they can kind of go, okay, I see what happened.
You put themselves in the space.
Right.
In an Encircle report, there's sort of an opportunity to write sort of a summary at the start. What are some important notes that are really important or critical to include in sort of that overall narrative at the start of a report? What are the like most important details to include in that?
Your cause of loss. Okay. Any specialty reasons. So like, say you have an extended dry time. Why did I have an extended dry time? Hey, we had to get asbestos testing on this before we could do it. So we set our equipment to stabilize the environment. But we couldn't cut into anything. Unfortunately, the lab was behind, or we couldn't get testing for 2 days or whatever. And so now we've, should have been a 4-day dry time, ended up turned into a 7-day dry time because you had 3 days of, so any delay in like your dry time with extended dry times. I know the insurance companies love to see that 3-day dry, wherever that came from. It's just like magically the water goes away in 3 days. Sorry, I a little sarcastic about stuff like this. It's just goofy. Well, we wanted it done in 3 days. Well, it wasn't dry in 3 days. What did you want? Anyway, okay, so like squirrel. But gosh, get me back on track, Alyssa. Sorry.
So what the important things to include in that sort of
the important
top level
things.
narrative?
Any specialty things that you had to do. Hey, we had a homeowner that was over the top of us the entire time we were packing this. And so, yes, I know we only have 20 boxes, but it took us 60 hours to do it. And usually if it's something like that, the adjuster's already dealt with that homeowner and understands that. So it's all your specialty stuff. Don't try to explain too much. You want to make it short, sweet, and concise. And once again, you're telling the story with the pictures, but don't tell them they don't want a novel. They want the book report at the end of the novel. Does that make sense?
Cliff notes.
Cliff notes. There you go.
Yeah. In your experience, this is the last question I have on my list, and then we'll open it up for final questions from the people who've joined us today. But in your experience, can we create a bit of a David Letterman top 10 list? It's a throwback to Letterman, but what are some of the most common line items that are being missed in, let's start with water mitigation.
Okay.
Invoices. I'll use the correct language. Where is money being left on the table where people could be billing for things that they aren't?
HEPA vacuuming is one. A lot of people aren't even doing it, but you understand you're putting down in the IACRC tells you to HEPA vac prior to placing air movers. So you're looking at, depending on where you're at in the country, it's an average of $1 a square foot. So you're leaving money on the table, but you're also not doing the job right. You're putting an air mover in a home and you're moving debris around because you didn't pre-HEPA vacuum. So make sure you're doing it if you're going to charge for it, but that's a big one. HEPA vacuuming your wall cavities after you've done your HEPA vacuuming the wall cavities after you've done your flood cuts, wet wiping your wall cavities, baseboards on 2-foot flood cuts. That seems to be, for whatever reason, people miss that a lot. Supervisor hours. You're going to have some supervisor hours. Somebody had to go, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have some of that. Somebody had to direct the crew to get out the door. They had to get them in whatnot. You're in your EQ hours, not putting in your drive times. EQ hours, not charging for a second person for confined space. So when you're monitoring an attic or you're monitoring a crawl space, not having your safety person outside of the hole and not charging for that person. Antimicrobial, your HEPA filters on your negative air machines, content manipulation hours for technicians, even if it's a half hour on 100 jobs, is a lot of money when you bring it up at the end of the
Fiscal year.
year on your bottom line. And in the scope sheets, there's a place to put that, you know, how long did it take to move the contents in each room? You slow down just for a moment and make sure that they're documenting that stuff. But that's where you get to that. If they're doing the daily documentation, it's so easy because they're only ticking off maybe 10 things they did, not 200 things that they did in the last 2 weeks. Tax strip, if you're removing the tax strip, and add-ons for when you've got something that's glued down on concrete. So a lot of the floorings that are glued down, that there is an add-on charge in WTR for removing that off of concrete, or removing even the mastic, or the padding, the pad glue, scraping the rubber back residue.
Okay.
That's my list.
I think that was about 10. Nailed it.
I don't know. Did I give you 10?
I think
We can
so.
go back and count.
All right. Well, we have 2 more questions, and then we're gonna turn things over to JF to dive into how you can do all of this.
Masking. There we go. Maybe that'll get
Masking.
you to 10.
There we go. Barry asked, what percentage do you deal with desk adjusters versus field adjusters in your work?
We don't see a lot of field adjusters. Probably we're getting like over 90% of the adjusters at the most they're doing is a virtual walkthrough. They're not in the areas that we're working in. I'm not seeing adjusters going out to jobs. They'll do, yeah, I've got a virtual walkthrough with so-and-so. There still are some, and it always is the bigger ones. It doesn't generally ever seem to be on the smaller jobs.
Yep.
You know, on your bigger ones, yeah, you're going to have those walkthroughs, which are really necessary, which would have been nice. I mean, back in the 90s, you went and you did the job, you wrote the estimates, you met the adjuster out there with your estimate, and they wrote you a check on site. But
the good old days.
Get rid of the internet and we could probably go back to that.
Okay, last question. How do you justify cleaning? This is to your top 10 list that you talked about, HEPA cleaning. How do you justify cleaning when the reviewer or adjuster says that cleanup after drywall or insulation removal is included in the line item?
Open up your definition on Exactament. So if you go over to the right-hand side, you'll see the little picture there. Click on that. It has a definition. Every single line item has that, and it tells you what it includes, what it excludes, and you can just kind of copy paste that and say, look, it's not included in this. That's why I charged over here, because here's the description for that line item.
Yeah, follow-up question from the same guy. That was my point of the question. Drywall removal says it includes cleanup of drywall residue.
It's just the immediate area, and it's not for HEPA vacuuming, it's for regular vacuuming.
It's just the immediate area, and it's just for regular vacuuming, not for HEPA vacuuming. We get it paid all day long. Without, I mean, I'm not saying without fail, on occasion, you know. But it's not one of those ones that it's not one of those ones that we lose on a lot.
Thank you, Karena.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to throw into the chat Karena's contact information for her business, Exact Mitigation Consultants. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So I will throw a link to our estimating partners website, and Karena's information is on there. So feel free to reach out to her and ask some additional questions or sign up with her as a client. In the meantime, while I do that, Karena, you have some news about your business, and I would love for you to share that news with everybody here.
So we've kind of done acquisition or partnered. We're now part of a bigger conglomerate, environmental construction specialists. I know we were talking about the abatement. It was crazy that one came through. And another revenue source. If you are getting abatements in the company that I am now a part of, is does that, does asbestos abatement. We do pay a consulting fee, which is basically a marketing fee. You went out and you marketed, you spent the money. We'd either have to pay it to Google or a website. I mean, we have a website, but we'd have to, we have to pay for marketing somewhere. Much rather pay it to the contractor that's bringing the work. So if you do get something that's hot with asbestos, get with us, or get with us on the front side, and we can set up and show you how to make more. So that's 10% off the top that we pay you. We look at it as a marketing fee because we didn't have to market it. That was, basically for you marketing it for us. And then we can show you how to make an additional 20% on that. So you basically, instead of just giving it away to an abatement company, at that point, now, an abatement company that's certified in all the states and is able to come take care of that for you, you're pulling back into your company 30%, and we work hand in hand with you. So at the end, you can go back in if there's any additional drawing that needs to be done of the substructure and that kind of stuff. So there you go.
Great. Thank you so much, Karena.
No worries.
Very much appreciate all of your knowledge that you shared with us today.
Thank you, Leah.
And we'll let you go. You're welcome to stay and listen to JF, but you can also leave. It's totally up to you. But thank you again. We very much appreciate the time that you spent with us today.
No worries. Thank you. It's been fun.
All right, we will move on. Bye, Karena. We will move on to part 2, estimating excellence in Encircle. So JF, I will throw it over to you, and you can walk us through what you're going to cover next.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Karena. Hope everybody got some value out of that Q&A session with her. So before I start, before I jump in, we're going to do more of a practical, kind of a hands-on demo with Encircle here. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. So as you can see, I think this is kind of what we're planning on covering in the next roughly 47 minutes we've got left. So before I jump in, the challenge with these virtual ones, I'd be curious how many of our attendees today are actually using a third-party estimator. And I know it's probably hard to, we don't have a poll out there and you can't raise your hands, but I'd be curious to find out. Because my role with Encircle as a success manager, I work with all our large enterprise accounts. And that's a trend I've been seeing over the last couple of years is, contractors starting to leverage a third party, removing that responsibility from their PMs or estimators and using a third party. So having a tool like Encircle to be able to aggregate and compile all that data and move that information back or share that file back with a third party is useful. So that's one trend I'm seeing. Sounds like third party, yes. Some of you are using remote estimating or a third party, so interesting. And then the other question I'd be curious to find out, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Encircle, but I don't know how many of you are actually using Encircle, because I'm going to be showing you Encircle live. And so for those that know it, hopefully you'll be learning some new things today and how to train your teams on using it accordingly or better. So we talk about some best practices. Jennifer, thank you. Sounds like you use Encircle and loving it. Good. But for those that don't know it, you'll get a glimpse into how your field teams specifically, can use Encircle to write better estimates, write more accurate estimates. As Karena said, it's a narrative. You're telling a story of what you're doing in the field. You have to be able to tell that story and justify the work that's being done. So obviously I'm preaching to the choir here when I say document, document, document. But we'll get into the app right now. And we'll show you guys how easy it is for you teams to get in there. So let me just share my screen. I'm going to start in the mobile, guys. So I'm going to start in the mobile app. So let me just share my phone here with you. Again, Lee, I'm going to lean on you to let me know once you see my phone.
I got you. There it is.
It is there. Perfect. Awesome. So I'm going to just back out here. All right. So obviously, if you guys are familiar with Encircle mobile, you'll be familiar with this screen. I'm working out of just a test claim today, as you can imagine here, the Jerry and Cookie Fleck one. So as Karena mentioned, or as for those of you using Encircle, you're familiar with the concept of rooms, right? We work with rooms. That's how you document the job, right? If you look here in the rooms below, we've got the exterior, which is the front of the property. We got a room called policyholder photos and videos in this case, where we've sent the link and captured initial loss photos from the homeowner and even got the work authorization signed. Karena mentioned that earlier during this today's session. Super important to get the work authorization signed, which you guys already know. And then you have different rooms here. So technicians, PMs will create rooms based on obviously the affected area. And it keeps obviously the job well organized. Well, let's jump into, so adding a room is super easy, by the way, right? You can choose from a pick list, or you can just type it out or use your voice to text. But in this case, we're just going to jump right into the kitchen. We're going to assume the damage is in the kitchen. So we're creating a room called kitchen. As we jump into the kitchen here, it should load shortly. Let me click into it again. There we go. There's always a bit of a delay with the reflector tool that I'm using. So you guys should be able to see there's 8 photos in there. We're going to touch on 360. So when we train technicians and PMs, and it depends who arrives there first, we kind of take the approach that the divide and conquer. These days, it doesn't have to be the PM that does it or the estimator that does it. It can be a technician, or your technicians, the first person that'll arrive on site can start documenting the loss, right? So if we go to photos and videos, if I open up that camera button at the top, the first thing you'll notice, guys, is that I am in the kitchen. As you can see from the very top of my screen here, it says kitchen. So we're in the kitchen. We always, from a best practice standpoint, we will train the technicians or the users to take photos of the affected area, the loss, from floor to ceiling, and we'll want to slightly overlap those photos left to right. Now, granted, 360 will do a lot of that for us now, and that's, as you know, gone live, and we'll cover how that looks shortly. But taking photos will obviously provide a lot more clarity, a lot more detail in terms of the trim, the doors, whatever else. 360 will capture it, but the photos will add even more detail. If you're looking at the bottom of my phone, guys, you'll notice we have a video as well. So that's another great ally, a great tool to leverage in the scoping and documentation process. So photos tell a story, but a video will even take it a step further, provide even more context and color in terms of the cause of the loss, what happened, the amount of pre-existing damage that might exist, so on and so forth. And then we have the 360 view that we'll show you guys shortly, right? So right at the bottom there, it keeps the whole documentation process. I just jumped off of 360 because I don't have a camera that's connected. We'll give you guys a demo shortly of how that works, okay? But again, video, photo, 360, very easy for a technician to document within this view. Another update that we've done is at the top of the screen, again, if I refer back up to the top of the screen here where it says kitchen, if there is a multi-room loss, I can now click on that drop-down menu, right? And we can jump from room to room, never leaving the camera view. Right? So I can go from kitchen to living room. I am now in the living room, right? So again, this is an update that we've released several months ago, I think probably a year now. One of my favorite updates because it allows for efficient documentation of the loss, okay? And you can also add rooms. So if you look to the right, there's a little add button. We can tap that and again, type out the name of the room. So we're always living in this camera view here to document the loss. Now, photos are an important component. Video actually adds a lot more context, and then we now have 360. So if you want to see what a 360 looks like now that we have some examples to show you here at the very top of those photos that you're looking at here, if I click into them, this is what the result will look like once you pull in that 360. So if I click on the 360 view, we can now view the entire room, and we can zoom in by pinching in and pinching out. Okay, so it gives us a good layout of the room, gives us context. great for contents and whatnot. So that's for photos. Now, we're going to talk about photos, but there's notes also in there that we can be adding to provide more information to whoever is going to be writing the estimate. So in this case, you can see we've got post mitigation, we've got during, we've got pre-mitigation, we've got pre-existing damages. So notes can be used to, again, provide more context, and we can create photo notes. So we're adding, again, not just text, but we're adding more color and context to our note with photos. All right. Now everybody gets that. We'll get into floor plan, because again, on day 1 or day 0, depending how you see it, you want to be able to not only document everything that's happening, cause of loss, so on and so forth, but you also want to run a floor plan to get that 2D, your sketch, your floor plan ready. So how does that look like? Well, the experience will be all in-app, as you can see, and some of you on the call might already be using this feature, but for those that haven't used it yet, you can see I've got one floor plan that's ready here. So if I click in it, we can kind of zoom in. You got to get an idea of the result. The great thing with this tool is that it's all in-app. We don't discriminate on the type of platform you're on. So whether you're an Android user, it works. If you're an iPhone user, it works. Now, from an accuracy perspective, it will be more accurate with iPhone devices that utilize the LiDAR. Okay, so those would be the Pro models with the 3 lenses, giving it more data. So the accuracy in terms of inches, we think in inches, it would be 1 to 2 inches. So we're saying about 97% accuracy with LiDAR devices. If you're using an iPhone with non-LiDAR or just a regular Android, it still works, but you will be 95% accurate. So in terms of inches, if you want to think in inches, roughly 3 to 4. If it's beyond that, for those that have tested it and say, oh, I've seen more, a larger discrepancy on my floor plan that I've done on it, oftentimes, more often than not, it is user technique that's impacting or affecting the accuracy of your scan. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're scanning the room too quickly. And you'll see, we'll show you a quick demo of how that looks like from a user perspective. But there's live guidance in-app to tell the user, hey, you're turning too fast. So you want to make sure that you plan your route, where you're going to start and where you're going to finish. Another common mistake is people think they're just scanning one room or one floor and then submitting the scan. The great thing with this is you can run it continuously. So if you're doing a multi-level loss, then you would have to start in the lowest floor. So we'd start normally in the basement. We'd trace the entire perimeter of the room, walking in and out of every room. You want to make sure that there's enough lighting. And then you're continuously scanning, right? You're not stopping the recording. You're walking your way up the stairs and you're scanning that upper floor or that first floor. Once you're done, you can actually review that scan, and we'll get to that shortly. Review it, and if you're good with it, you'll submit it. And then from a turnaround time, because people want to know how fast does it come back in. So anything up to 10,000 square feet, you'll get it back within 6 hours or less. So again, on larger commercial properties, it can take up to 6 hours. On your regular residential loss, we're thinking 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, you're normally getting it back within 90 minutes. So again, when you're arriving on site, if you're 1 or 2 technicians, you can divide and conquer. One can start taking photo documentation, taking the videos, and another one can run the scan, right? And again, within 90 minutes, you'll get that floor plan. You'll get a notification that the floor plan's ready. So let me just show you guys how that workflow looks like. Now, once it's back in here, you can then, again, day 1, same day, import that scan. If you guys are not subbing that out or outsourcing the estimate writing to a third party, like Karena's company, if you're doing it in-house, you can actually pull that pull that floor plan into Xactimate and get your ESX file same day. So let me just jump off the phone here real quick so I can show you guys visually how that flow or that function, that feature works in app. All right, so field capture. So first up, as you just saw here that I showed you, you would hit the add floor plan. We're giving the user a bit of a guidance here, hold the phone at chest level, walk forward slowly, Don't do the crab walk, don't walk sideways, and capture the entire property, the whole property in one scan, right? Next, you'll see that what the user is doing here. So they're walking in and out of each room. If you guys can see that properly. All right, so then they're running the whole scan. There is live guidance, as I mentioned, right? So we're telling user if they're going too fast, we're going to let them know. Okay, so that's those live prompts will pop up at the top of the screen. And then they can review the scan before you actually submit it into the clouds, right? So before you actually hit the submit button, which is at the bottom right of the phone, you can review the timeline, and all those prompts that those live warnings that you saw will represent a red bar in that timeline. So again, rule of thumb, if you have more than 30% of red in your timeline, we recommend rescanning the room, and you have that option in there as well. Okay. If you're happy with it, submit it. Once it is ready, as I said, same day delivery, average 90 minutes for you to get it back. You can then obviously take, you can actually see the scan, which is an image here, JPEG image. You can convert that into sketches within each rooms. You can use it for moisture mapping, so it goes beyond just your estimate writing, and obviously pull it into Xactimate to be able to pull it in as an ESX, right? So moisture mapping, as I just mentioned. And then the Xactimate import, basically just quickly, if you're wondering how that looks, we're going into Xactimate, we're doing a data request, but you got to turn on the integration. Then we're doing the data request. You're importing that floor plan ID. So again, this is all Verisk Xactimate screens. And then you're doing the data transfer. It'll let you know in the notification center once the data has been received and it's ready. Then you go to your project, you go to your sketch, and then that little icon there, you got a last little click to do. And now you're importing that into Xactimate. So as I mentioned, it could be multiple floors. The cost is going to be one scan, $129 if you're not paying anything beyond that, right? And then there's an import fee into Xactimate. Again, we can provide that more detail if you have any questions in the Q&A. I will now, if I may, pass it over to Sean, who can will show us how the 360 looks. I know some of you were asking questions about the 360, so we'll show you guys how to operate the 360 in Encircle. So I'm gonna I'll stop sharing for now, Sean.
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, I'm muted.
No, we can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Let me share my screen here for 360. Just like you, Jeff, let me know when everyone can see my screen. See my phone there?
You're good.
All right. So as JF said, just this past week, we've launched our integration with the Ricoh Theta camera. And what JF showed you was like how we've really just integrated it in with our camera. It's yet another photo that you're able to take. So I have a Ricoh Z1 here in my office. We support the Ricoh Z1, the Ricoh X, the SC2, and the SC in our integration. So if you have those already, you just need to update to our latest app and you'll be able to connect. So the way the 360 works, and Jeff, I'm actually working in parallel, like you said, at Jerry and Cookie Flex house. So while you're doing your overview photos in the different spaces, I've been working in another part of the room. So I've created a new room that I've gone into to create a 360 photo here. And to do that, really, you just need to go into the camera inside a room. And what you can see here is we now have this option to connect to a 360 camera. So the way this works is the Ricoh cameras have their own Wi-Fi network. And what we need to do, and this is similar to how other people have integrated with the Ricoh, is you need to connect your smartphone's Wi-Fi to the Ricoh's Wi-Fi. So I've turned on the Ricoh Theta. I've paired this in the past. But if I kind of swipe down and go into my Wi-Fi settings, I'll see the Ricoh Theta network show up here. If you haven't paired with it for the first time, you'll have to enter in the password. That's easy to get. We can share that information. But once you connect, I'm using an Android. The process is similar to iOS, so just go to your Wi-Fi settings in iOS. It'll connect. One thing to note is Obviously the camera is not connected to the internet. So you're going to get this warning that says, hey, there's no internet connection. And that's totally expected, because what we're doing is basically setting up a Wi-Fi direct connection between the camera and the smartphone to download those photos onto our app. Because the photos are fairly big, kind of 8 to 10 megabytes. So to do that, say over Bluetooth, is not reasonable. So this is why Rico's decided to go with Wi-Fi. So I'm connected to the Wi-Fi network. If I click on 360, you can see I'm in the viewer now. If I wasn't connected, I'd get a warning that tells me, hey, connect to the Wi-Fi network, and then you can go through those steps, and then you'll get the preview. With the Ricoh Theta camera, the ones that we've integrated with, they support kind of 2 photo modes, a single shot, which takes, so the way the Ricohs work, I'm sure a lot of people already know, is they're dual lenses. So there's a camera lens, right, there we go, on the back, and a camera lens on the front. So essentially the camera is taking 2 photos with both lenses, and then its software is merging it together to create that kind of 360 spherical view. So what you can do with Ricoh cameras is you can have a single shot where it takes both images at the same time. That works out well for smaller rooms, like I have here in my office, if I'm able to get out of the way. Because the key thing is you don't want to be in the picture itself, because it can obscure some details that the estimator or the adjuster may want to look at. Or if you're in a much bigger space and you're not able to kind of leave the room and be the picture, you can kind of do a time shift mode, which really takes a photo with the front camera, pauses, allows you to move around the camera, which I'll demonstrate, and then takes a photo with the back camera. So I'm going to do time shift mode. If you go into settings, you can see you can set up time delays between them to give you more space. We default to 3 seconds and 3 seconds. If you need to extend that, that's easy to do just by updating that. So if I go time shift, I click that. So the camera is going to take a picture with the front. Once I hear it, the UI is going to tell me now I can walk around to the back. I'll do that. It'll take the second photo. There we go. Our UI now is getting instructions from the camera. The camera itself is merging the photos into a 360, and then now we download it to our app, at which point you can review. So we can preview the photo. Is this everything I want? You can zoom in on the photos. As you can see, I'm not in the photo at all because of that time shift, because I was able to move around the different lenses. I'm happy with it. I'll save that to the camera. And then, like JF showed, I can now pick up the camera, move into the kitchen without even leaving the screen. I'm still connected, walk to where I need to go, take another photo. So I can rapidly, with one camera in one screen, move between rooms. Or if you're by yourself, you can easily switch to the regular photos, switch to the video scope video that JF talked about, take the detailed photos that you need of that space, pick up the camera, move to the next room, kind of rinse and repeat. And then when you're all done with your photos, you're kind of back here. One thing to note is because we're connected to the Wi-Fi here, we're not able to sync the data. Even though I'm connected to cellular still, the way the operating systems work is because there's a Wi-Fi connection, it'll always try to send data over the Wi-Fi. So all you need to do to start syncing is turn off the camera or just turn off the camera's Wi-Fi. There's specific buttons to do that. You'll see I've now gone back to my home Wi-Fi, and I'll start syncing up the photo I just took, as well as any other data that was taken by my colleagues on the claim or someone doing something at the office. So as simple as that. Here we are. If I go back to the office, there's the 360 photo. JF showed the experience earlier. You can go in there, view it, and then JF will go in and talk about how these can get added to reports and forms and all that stuff. Perfect, Jeff. If there's nothing else, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. All right, let me share my screen again. And I'm gonna do that. All right. Can you guys see my screen? I'm gonna say yes.
Yep, we're good, Jeff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so as you can see, 360 fairly easy once it's connected. Video, photos, all make sense. But beyond the photos and videos, right, there's more information likely that Karena and her team may need. So let me show you again from a mobile perspective, what that looks like. So we talked quickly on room notes. or photo notes to add more, information as to what's being done. And again, I'm going to assume that you guys can see my phone. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Going into kitchen. So yeah, so again, under notes is where you guys can log and notes. I mean, just backing it up here, going back to the rooms, like being that I work with a lot of contractors, and I've been doing it for a number of years now, like rooms, people create rooms based on what they want to document or how they want to document. When we start using notes, it's a powerful tool, but it's a powerful tool if we keep it within the loss room. So for example, I'm in the kitchen here. Some people will actually create a note. They'll create a new room for each note. And we don't recommend to do that. I think it's better to keep things organized. Again, we're trying to tell a story, and Karena said it best. You're telling a story to a toddler. The contractors are being the adjusters now. You're being their eyes and ears on site. So you have to be able to, you have to put yourself in the reader's shoes, and you're trying to explain to them what it is you're seeing or what it is you're doing. So going back to notes, creating just a text note is fine, right? If I click on the note here, we can use our voice to text. Observations. Okay. Oh, I didn't want to click out of that. Sorry, I went too quick. So there's a couple of things to this. As you saw, you voice the text, give it observations, give it a demo, give me an update, May 15th update. You can go into descriptions, again, use your voice to text, but we also have templates. You have note templates. So at the very, not the bottom, right above my keypad right there, we can pull in a note template. So these are things that, again, allows for better, a better way to document, a way to be more consistent in how your teams may document in the field. So you can see there's two templates there right now. Cause of loss, there could be one for, it's just notes that your teams may need to use regularly without having them to type it out. So I can actually preview what it is I want, what that note is, and then I can pull it in and just hit the use button at the bottom. So note templates are, again, a great ally to help you scope and write, and again, explain the work that's being done and what it is that you're trying to convey to the adjuster or to your estimator, your third-party estimator. So note templates, great tool. You can do it in a note, but then we also have scope sheets. So some of you may be familiar with our scope sheets. They would live in your documents. As you can see from my screen, I've got 17 documents right now, which is that right in the middle here, right in the gray bar. If I hit documents, right, we can generate that scope sheet, but obviously I have it already set up for, in this case. So it's the one that's May 15th. You can see you guys can have access to these mitigation scope sheets. The customers that I work with a lot of the enterprise, larger banners. They have taken these scope sheets. Some of them have made them their own. They've either used ours or they're using a version that they have used for themselves, or they might be using a third-party estimator's scope sheets. But what the scope sheet allows you to do, let me show you. If I click in it, we're just going to edit the document, is the ability to, right, adding a room, a day, or location. In here, you can see I'm in the kitchen. So I'm going to go back to the kitchen. So if I just tap here, again, we're going to edit here. It gives us, and I find it's most useful, we find it's most useful for, newer PMs or estimators that may not be seasoned or have all the knowledge of somebody that's been doing it for 5, 10, 20 years. So we built this to follow some type of order of operation. So if you look at the very top, we have use of Encircle, right? This allows you actually, there is a bid item, which you can see WTR bid item here for floor plan. So if you are using our floor plan tool, I know in Canada, there are some carriers that will actually pay part of that floor plan cost with, justification with the invoice. So if you're not adding that bid item to your estimate, you might try to get it covered by the carrier. Then we have general site requirements. So I'm gonna go back into general site requirements. So here you can see under general site requirements, we have, right, has materials. We talked about lead and asbestos. If you're doing testing for asbestos or lead, you have it in here. All these are based off of the Xactimate line item codes. Content storage, if you're doing on-site or off-site, right? I'm not going to bore you with going through all of these sections, but this is all the stuff that you're setting up, right? When you're setting up the job, if you're doing temporary power or you're doing board ups, okay? Then we have water. We get into the water section. So again, I have some of that already filled out. I'm just going to edit in here. So in the water section, again, this helps support our estimate. This goes and kind of justifies our charge outs and explains what it is that's been done. And we have guys that are using these very successfully, not leaving as much money on the table and increasing your margins or your profitability. As we know, we're getting squeezed. So you have to be very thorough when it comes to how you write your estimates. So again, we have from the very top, we've got testing in here. So if you're doing ATP or moisture testing, asbestos, lead, we've got notes section for regular hours. We've got a notes section for after hours. We've got PPE, so full, half, face, head and body protection. If I go to add, you can see all the line item codes are there. So eye protection, disposable gloves, protective suits, right? And then we also have an other button in the middle at the bottom that if the line item doesn't exist, you can basically type it out, okay? Again, not going to bore you, but we talked about PPE, you got site protection in here. If you're adding floor protection, we've got extraction, category 2. We've got 3-stage biowash, 5-stage biowash. We've got contents, so contents pack out. I know one question from the session earlier with Karena was some of the things that you can charge out. One thing that gets missed often, she had a top 10, but one that gets missed is masking floor registers or removing blinds and cleaning blinds if you're detaching and removing blinds. So we've built this scope sheet to follow that order of operation that kind of help and prompt whoever's filling it out to remember things that they can bill for, right? So we got tear out insulation, drywall, windows, drapes and blinds, detached baseboard trim, so on and so forth. Cold air returns, right? When you're detaching them, or whether you're covering them, you have it in here. So again, scope sheets can also help with your creating better scopes, better accurate scopes, and supporting that information. So that's for scope sheets. And you can digitize. I mean, if you can think about a form that will help drive more consistency in how your teams document, our forms team can build it for you. So I've showed you ours. If you guys want to have access to this scope sheet, we're happy to provide it to you at no extra cost. There is a macro set that goes with this specific scope sheet, this mitigation 2.0 scope sheet. So we'll supply those macros that need to be set up into Xactimate. Again, this is considering that you're writing your own estimate. You're not offloading it to a third party. Otherwise, we can build a custom scope sheet for the information that you're looking to capture. So forms, again, is a very powerful tool to help with the documentation in the field. And then reporting. I've got some reporting examples that I can show you. So I'll just jump off the phone right now and we'll show you on the desktop. Actually, Leah, is there any questions while I'm still in the app that anybody wants? Any questions in here?
There was just one question, but I think that you answered it. Are you able to create the full estimate in Encircle, or do you export the data to Xactimate to populate the pricing info?
Yeah, so once you so granted you're using our scope sheets, right? The way that it helps expedite the estimate writing process is, well, most of us have multi-screens now, so you basically have that scope sheet, which I'll show you what a completed scope sheet looks like, and with the macros in Xactimate. So you're running multiple screens. You're obviously having Xactimate open in one, and then you have the scope sheet, the PDF scope sheet in the other, and each section contains a code, which is actually the macro set from Xactimate. So you're kind of pulling in that section of the estimate in Xactimate and removing any line item that doesn't apply. So it can really speed up the estimate writing process, but you're running kind of in parallel. Now, from my experience, estimators, some estimators feel like the work feels a little redundant to them because they're like, well, I'm having to write the estimate. Now you want me to go into a PDF and kind of outline or kind of capture all that information in a PDF when I've got it up here, or I'm having to do it in Xactimate mobile, or I'm doing it, on the field, I'm doing it through my iPad or whatever. So it's not every company, from my experience, that are leveraging these scope sheets, but those that are seeing a lot of success, again, from, improving their bottom lines and having, supporting documentation to help justify those estimates. As you know, you're getting scrubbed, you're getting reviewed. We've got reviewers here that are reviewing your estimate, and their whole goal is to kind of cut down your estimate. So the better, the more thorough you can be, the better off, as you can imagine, it will be on the getting paid front. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll jump off the app for now. We can always go back if there's any other questions. But some examples, I mean, here is a PDF. Let me just see here. This is actually a scope sheet that you guys should be able to see on my screen right here. Just blow that up a little bit. So this is a completed scope sheet. Right, so you have here the location, the date, the location, and then here we've got monitoring hours. So you got the line item. So we got quantities. We have the actions as well and the variable. But in most cases, whoever's filling that form in the field normally just needs to follow or stick to the quantities. So whether it's linear feet, whether it's square feet, whether it's the amount of bags or respirators, or we talked about HEPA filters earlier as well, right? So you're putting that in there. So again, it creates a very complete kind of document. And you can see in the left column, there's a code, right? So code 102, packing supplies, moving blankets, there's a code in there. That refers to the Xactimate macros when you have them set up. So that's one example. And then from a reporting standpoint, once you captured all the necessary information, creating reports gets super easy in Encircle. I think that's one thing that makes us stand out, is the ability to just generate a preliminary report, whether you can call it a 12-hour report or a 24-hour report, as the carriers would call it. So generating report, I've got several here already generated, but if you hit generate report, you can go to PDF. One that is often, I find not underutilized, but maybe not as utilized, it's a Swiss Army report. It really does any type of report, beginning like pre-loss or preliminary, and then even your final report is the Encircle PDF report. Everybody has access to that Encircle PDF report. It sits at the very top. So when you're clicking in here, you can see you have a lot of options when it comes to aggregating that data, right? Your data selections are several, right? You can select everything. You can select nothing. You can select structures only, sketches only, specific structures, specific rooms. And then we get into more contents related data criteria, where it's like locations, if you're tracking the chain of custody of your contents, or if you're looking at contents by disposition, right? So if we select everything just for the sake of this one, so I've clicked on everything, we'll give it a title, whatever that title needs to be. We'll name that. My Wi-Fi here, so okay, that was a little slow from a Wi-Fi perspective, but you can call it your preliminary report, right? We can put a cover photo. I can select an existing photo for the cover. And then we have the ability to choose. We can put front of wrist. We can attach documents. So if I wanted to attach my authorization, my work authorization, if I wanted to attach my mitigation scope or even a moisture report, we can do that. We have a table of contents. If we wanted to really drive that storyline, that narrative of what's happening, we have a table of contents. You have the ability to show or not show media timestamps. Your date and time can show up on those photos. Psychometrics, as I mentioned earlier, and your item pricing, which would be contents. If I go a little bit lower, we can look at it by date range. So if it is a large loss that you're working on, you can pull. If you're doing progressive billing with a property manager for a commercial property, you can look at it by week or by month and pull that date range, right? We can look at it by notes, floor plans, rooms, and content. So these tabs here allow you to really pull the data that you want together. And then at the last but not least would be hit the generate report button. And that report would look like, I'm going to discard that, would look like this is one here. So you see you have the report details, you have the claims summary at the top here, failed water line under the kitchen sink, and we get into the table of contents, right? We've got a floor plan in here. All these, well, everything in the table of contents is clickable. So if I wanted to look at the overview photos for the kitchen, I can just click there. It brings me automatically to the kitchen photos. So if you put yourself in the person that's receiving this, well, it's very easy to kind of understand what's happening, what's been done. Oh, didn't want to click back. There we go. But you can actually click through all these photos. So if I go again to overview photos, and they can actually view the 360 photos as well. So if you click on it, we can actually view the 360 photo from this kitchen here, as we did on the mobile app earlier. We're running down to the hour here. I probably want to open it up for some questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna extend my welcome.
Good boy, Jeff. I love it. I've been answering questions as you go, but I think we've got them all. Somebody just asked a question. Sean, I don't know if you want to answer this one or JF, but what is the point of supporting 360 if you don't create a floor plan from it? Is it just for 360-degree virtual viewing later?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as Karena had pointed out earlier, the top of the hour, that the 360, the photos themselves have extreme value in terms of giving you an overview of each of the spaces, and then allowing you to zoom in and out, and then they could be supplemented with, you know, overview detailed photos, pre-existing damage photos, all the kind of nuances in that room. So by itself, the photo has extreme value. We've heard from estimators like Karena and others that those 360 photos allow them to capture even more line items than just pure overview photos, and allows you to get into that space, look around and see it as kind of the adjuster or the estimator, understand what it looked like, and then kind of review or create the estimate from that perspective.
Thanks, Sean. Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm going to take over. You had one more thing to talk about with this checklist, and then I'm going to take over sharing. Is that okay?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
All right, because it's related to this next question. So let me just switch my share back on. Are you guys seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The question was, which of the 360 cameras is recommended for the most detailed capture? We are supporting, Sean would be able to give you off the top of his head all of the list of cameras, but the Theta X, I believe, is the one that provides the most, the highest quality images. And with our integration with Rico, we have a discount code available that's valid until the end of this month on the Theta X. So this will be included in the follow-up email that you'll get from us in a couple of days, but the information is on the screen here. So code is Encircle, and that is 38% off the Theta X, 39% off with Encircle B for bundle. Is $549, so 39, almost 40% off the bundle with the tripod. And that is the one that we would recommend to have the crispest, most high quality images. JF, thank you for that great walkthrough of Encircle and how we can tie in all of our documentation into getting excellent invoices or estimates for water mitigation and rebuild, leveraging the tools that are in Encircle. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Sean, for doing the demo of 360. We know people are really excited about it. Please leverage the discount code that is valid until the end of May. And I'm not sure if I caught it earlier, but 360 photos is included with your Encircle subscription. So there is no additional cost to capturing 360 photos. We say BYOC, bring your own camera and you're good to go capturing 360 photos in Encircle.